Alrighty, I'm here today with Adrian Smude, also known as the guy in the yellow shirt, as everybody I meet in Denver knows him as. Really cool business that he does, and I really like why he does it. It's, your company's lifestyle, REI, lifestyle real estate investment. You're all about lifestyle. And what I love about it, it's non-conventional. You found that mobile homes were the best way for you to get there. Cannot wait to have this conversation, especially because I do own a couple mobile homes myself, and I don't do nearly as good a job as you. So I'm really excited to learn.
Well, thanks, Jeff. I've been excited about this episode because I always love already talking to someone that understands mobile homes. A lot of podcasts I get on, they're trying to have me convince them over to mobile homes. You actually understand mobile homes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. It's funny. Every time I meet somebody in Denver, I'll go to like a real estate meetup or something, and they'll say, "Hey, what do you do?" I'll say, "Oh, I'm a mobile home park investor." Like, "Oh, like Adrian." Or usually they'll say, I met this guy who wears this like shirt, and they start talking about. So the shirt stuff works, man. Everybody knows you by that. It's awesome. I wish I had. I'm working on trying to figure out what might be my version of that. But yeah, it's very interesting. And you and I laugh about all this all the time. That your business and my business are very different, but they're everybody on the outside kind of thinks it's exactly the same. So I'm really excited to kind of pick your brain on why mobile homes themselves are kind of your go-to vehicle. So just to, kind of explain to people, what's your background? How'd you get into all this and what led you down this path?
My quick story is I started as a real estate investor about 22 years ago, I think it is now. Actually, right before I started as a real estate investor. So why I started is I was a terrible tenant. My friends and I were renting a house. We had a stack of eviction notices for mainly parties. We had parties like spaghetti wrestling parties, mud wrestling parties, pudding wrestling parties. The one we didn't get caught for is we had a pool party inside the house. So the moral of the story there is don't rent to Adrian and his friends at 20 years old. But I had to solve the problem of getting evicted over and over again. So I bought a house, moved all my friends in. Then I learned why we sucked as tenants. But I did something really smart then. Before all the co-living and the house hacking was like a popular thing, I just decided, well, I'm going to rent out my rooms in the house to my friends. So divide up my mortgage. I live for free at 20 years old, not with mom and dad, which is really, really cool. I bought a few more houses. The second house I bought, I actually bought it at the top of the market, and then the plan was, you'll refinance in a few years, but I had the adjustable rate mortgage. In a few years, the real estate market was going down. My payment was going up. I went from losing a little bit every month to a little bit more every month, and I eventually gave up the home, and I gave it up as a short sale. That was a huge ding to my ego, a huge ding to my integrity. And I'll come back to that in a few seconds, though. I bought a few houses since then. And then that short sale came back. It was reminding me, like, hey, you don't want to screw up again. You don't want to compromise your integrity. You say you're going to pay something, and you didn't last time. And that's how I found mobile homes. I was searching for something different, something that would still work. So I've been wrong in the real estate market for about a decade. But that's how I got into mobile homes because they cash flow better. There's way less competition. And since then, I have transitioned my entire business over to single unit mobile homes with the land. That single unit is the big difference of you and I. I
Yeah.
buy basically single family housing, but it happens to be a mobile home. That business is in Central Florida, and that is what pays for my lifestyle.
Nice. So when you're talking about the short sale that you went through, this is probably right around the 2008 timeline, if I'm
Oh, yeah.
guessing.
So I
Yeah.
basically bought it at the top and sold it at the bottom. Exactly opposite what we're taught to do.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's kind of beginning investors. We pretty much all do that. It's like we just buy into the hysteria that goes in, and then people get caught up with it. But do you think what drew you to mobile homes was the fact that, and I'm guessing here, they probably didn't have the same sort of price craze as other things. I mean, they are seen more, for better or for worse. Some of them have a stigma, and do you think that they just didn't get inflated to the same way as single family homes? Is that kind of what you noticed?
That was a little bit of it. I heard my mentors speak over and over and over again about mobile homes. Maybe not as loud as I am in a yellow shirt and not in a podcast like you have here, but they would just talk about it. If you really started digging into what their career is, they all had mobile homes at some point or owned them right then. And I bought one, and my coach helped me see this cash flow was phenomenal compared to the houses. By him asking me the right questions over and over again, he helped me come up with what I wanted at that moment in my life was cash flow. I didn't care about appreciation. I didn't care about amortization and tax benefits as much as I cared about cash flow, because cash flow is how I was going to become financially free. Those other things are benefits and we want them, but the one I would trade anything for was cash flow at that time. And mobile homes produce better cash flow still today than pretty much anything I have found.
Yeah, and that's it's interesting because real estate there's a lot of shiny objects like oh depreciation. Like I'm a huge fan of that and stuff, but like half the times like I don't need it because I'm not making that much money. I just need the cash flow.
Yeah, and I have gotten all of these other benefits, but the one I focus on is cash flow because that's what I could eat every single day. And every month the money comes in. Equity and appreciation slows down, and then what happens if that's what you're living off of? The music stops.
And then so you had that short sale. Now you're kind of getting into the mobile home. You sounds like you've got some mentors at this point who are kind of like prodding you in that direction. What was the first action step? Like the first one you actually bought? How did that go?
Well, before I actually bought that one, I was in a very comfortable place, lived in a nice single family house, didn't need to work a lot. We lived a very modest life. It was comfortable, but I knew I wanted more. So comfort we hear sometimes is like the most dangerous place to be. And I didn't realize it at the time, but that's exactly where I was at. So I actually started doing some visualization. What if I'm still here in 5 years? The exact same place, just comfortable, not being able to do anything I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want. And that's what got me brave enough, we'll say, to buy my first mobile home. A friend at the local real estate group in Lakeland, Florida, she came up to me one night and she's like, "Hey, Adrian, my broker has someone that needs to sell their mobile home. Would you be interested?" And I said, yes. I went and looked at it. Long story short, I bought it for $16,000 cash, my own money, all my savings. My plan at that time was either this is going to work or I'm going to lose it all and get my splat moment. Like all these famous people and all these super successful people I hear of, they had their like big splat moment at some point. So I'm like, all right, I'm either going to make that happen or I'm going to make a lot of money. And I made a lot of money. And then
Nice.
I went on this little buying spree and just started buying mobile homes, selling off my single family and buying more mobile homes.
Nice. So it's 16,000. Was that land and the home included?
Yes, sir. That was
Wow.
zero point zero 0.08 acres for a 1965 single wide with basically everything I would tell you not to do. The septic tank was underneath the back porch, had an addition of a bedroom. Then you had to walk through that bedroom into another bedroom. I mean, the water heater was outside without a good cover. I mean, it had a lot of little issues, but I didn't know enough, so I did make some mistakes, and that's one reason I try to help people now to not make all these mistakes. But I made money. The thing is, I bought it with safe enough numbers that when I made those mistakes, it didn't bankrupt me, and I got addicted to that cash flow and just kept buying.
I mean, because everybody who gets into real estate, they learn about the 1% rule, right? You buy a house,
Yeah.
which doesn't really hardly exists. But okay, so you're saying 16,000. I'm guessing you rented it for more than $160 a month.
Oh yeah. I actually was selling that one. They gave me 5,000 down, and then I was selling it for $475 a month.
So almost three times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't need your calculator to be like that. Those numbers work. And here's the thing: is they paid it half off and then handed it back to me. And I tried to work something out, but she's like, "I can't afford this. $475 a month. She could not afford it." I tried to work with her. We ended up putting a few $1,000s into it, and it's now at 720 a month, I believe.
Wow. Wow. So 16,000 a month. When she bought it from you, how long was that period going to be? Because you're basically, if I'm assuming, you're financing it to her. You're not just renting it. It's a long term
Correct.
rent to own.
Correct. That one was a long-term rent to own. Now I don't do that many of those anymore. You do have to comply with Dodd-Frank and all of those fun laws. I don't remember how the length was because I actually solved for the length. So I find out what can they truly afford, and does that number work for me, of course. We figure out their interest rate, and hers was pretty low, much lower than I could have charged. I think it was like 7%. And we had the sale price, which I believe that one was $45,000. She gave the 5,000 down. So the note is actually 40,000. And then we solved for the number of months. I don't start out with number of months because they may not be able to afford that payment. That's how traditional banks do it. It's 30 years, 20 years, whatever the years is. I'm like, no, what can you truly afford? And let's work backwards that direction. And then, of course, does it work for me?
Yeah, and that's one of the keys to this business, right? It is affordable housing. It's not government-backed affordable housing, but I have found that the key in this space is if you make it work for other people, you have such high demand because there are so many people who need this. So did you do anything really to the house when you bought it? Or was it basically just to buy and turn around and rent it to somebody? Was there a massive rehab involved in this or not?
There definitely was not a massive rehab. I put a few $1,000s in it. Let's round up and say I have 20,000 in it total. So yeah, so I basically sold it for a little bit more than double than I paid for it, and then I rented it, or rent to own is really what I did, for $475 a month. And I didn't have my spreadsheet that I have today and understand the calculator all well enough. Partially got a little lucky, but those numbers just worked. Like I didn't need the calculator to be like, is this a good deal or not? Like that's really good numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Real estate is simple, and I think a lot of people, especially today with rates so high, people are trying to get creative and like find all these ways, but there are things that just fundamentally make sense. People never believe me when I tell them I can tell a deal's a good deal in about 60 seconds. Now, of course, when I actually go and buy it, I'll make sure I do a lot more research than that. But it doesn't take that long to like look at the fundamentals like that and be like, yeah, that makes total sense. So when she bought it, she gave you $5,000 down. Basically, she's going to pay it until she pays it off. So you're not expecting a big sale at some point in the future. You're just looking at, hey, I'm giving this money today. I'm going to get X amount of cash flow until a future date.
Yeah, I never did balloons. For one, that gets real tricky with the Dodd-Frank laws. And the other one is, I think it's setting the person up for failure. Most of these people that, if they're going to buy from me as a rent to own, there's a reason they aren't buying from a bank because I'm going to charge higher rates. They are not financeable. And most of those people don't have the extra cash 10 years to pay this thing off. So I just don't like the idea of it. I don't think it's very fair for them. So let's just keep it simple. Make your payments all the way through, take care of the property, pay the taxes, make sure you have insurance on it, and we're both happy.
Nice. That makes sense. Yeah, that's a good way to do it. So you're talking about, okay, you're going to put, let's call it 20,000 into it. You're going to rent it for 475. That could eat through a lot of cash quickly, right? If people are trying to
Hmm.
get into the space, they may say, hey, 100,000, I go through five, I'm still not at my goal. How do I keep growing? So did you kind of run into that problem as you were trying to scale this?
Well, yeah, that was all my cash. Remember, I mentioned I spent all my savings,
Right.
and I
Right.
bought another property in about a month. So how do I do that? No money. That's the next property was about $16,000 as well. Similar a concept, but it did not have that addition, and it didn't have a septic tank in the wrong spot. But again, I'm out of money, so that's where I went to my first private money. I borrowed $15,500, so all of it but $500. And I did keep it very simple because this is like hours worth of my class. I did a performance based note. So his interest rate was determined on how much money I brought in. So I didn't have to make a payment when it's empty. That's really big whenever for mortgages, especially when you're growing. That's the scary part of debt, is having money go out without money coming in. So because I was willing to pay, sorry, not before him, sorry, let me back up there. For him to take that risk of betting on me to always keep it full, he's going a little bit higher rate. So he's going to get half of the net rent. So after we pay the taxes, insurance, any maintenance and repairs. Well, that came up to be about 17.5% he made on his money.
Mhm.
So people say today they can't find anything. The rates are too high. By the way, when I bought my first house, the rates were higher than now. Obviously, prices were a little lower, but I bought that property at 16,000. He gets half a net rent. Honestly, I cannot remember exactly what rent was, but I want to say it was the original person was 400, and then we quickly got someone in there that was going to be $700 a month. So it was 17.5% what he makes. Who wants to give me more money? The guy that just made 17.5% on his money. And why would I give that up? I have $500 in a deal making, it was about $179, I think was the first few months before we got someone else in there. That's a really good return for me. I
Yeah.
actually have the better return on money. And that's how you can grow without much money. You help other people make a lot of money, and you in turn are going to make a lot of money.
Yeah, people, I mean, there's tons of people out there who've got money sitting in retirement accounts making like 4%, 5%. And it's just a knowledge barrier, right? A lot of those people that have those type of things work a job. They don't have the extra
Hmm.
time in their life to go figure something like this out. And they also don't need to make the mistakes. That's one thing I feel a lot of people think like, oh, I have to get super involved in real estate. I don't want to go down that route. It's like, no, you could take a 100% passive role, just lend the money and get better returns than a lot of other things. That's pretty awesome way that you've got that structured.
And I take some of my profits and put it in other people's deals for the exact same reason. I don't want to go as mobile home parks we were talking about before. I put my money in some mobile home parks. Even though we're in the same space, I don't want to deal with the management. You have management at a bigger level than I have. I'm managing individual people. You're managing a group of people, and you're a little bit more in the service business than I am. Because multifamily people a little bit more want services, and single family people that live there want a little more privacy. I don't want to deal with that side that you have, so I can get exposure of it by taking some of my profits and investing it in someone else's deal like yours that has a mobile home park, and I don't have to do anything.
Right. Yeah, it's awesome. It's a really good way to go. I mean, a lot of people are starting to think that way because deals are getting tougher to find. 4 or 5 years ago, when you could throw a rock and hit a good deal and get really cheap financing, not so much. So that's cool. So that first one you bought was in 1965, so it's pre-HUD.
Oh yeah,
What can you tell people about buying pre-HUD homes?
they're terrible. Send me all your deals. I make that joke, but that is how I've bought a lot of them. Is people are too scared of them, and I say, all right, if you're too scared of them, and I would be at my local RIA and say, you're right, they're terrible. Send me all of them. I will buy them. Yeah, I call it the wild, wild west in the mobile home space because yeah, there's no regulation. The pre-HUD is the June 15th, 1976, and we have lots of properties of that age. They are higher risk. You are going to get less insurance if you can get insurance at all on them. That's going to vary depending on where you're at in the country. But we can rebuild them. People think you can't, that they're only a depreciating asset. I don't agree with that. That hasn't been my case, and my bank account doesn't say so. You can rebuild them. Rebuilding them meaning like you're probably going to have to rewire them if they've never been rewired because you're going to have aluminum wiring. They're not as strong of a structure, especially in the hurricane area where I'm at. But again, we can rebuild them as long as, for me, the roof hasn't been leaking for a long time. Because if that roof is leaking for a long time, they just kind of like melt. I'm sure you've seen those that you're scared to touch the wall because you're going to fall through it. I don't like doing rehabs that big, but I have friends that have done them.
Nice, nice. Do you still like what's your kind of perfect buy box for an ideal mobile home at this point? Because what's funny is I've seen a lot of these, maybe not necessarily the pre-HUDs, but like right around the 70s, people think, oh, it's an old mobile home, it's not worth it. Some of those are built solid. And
Mm-hmm.
like if they are well kept, I mean, a 70s home could rent for just as much and be just as nice as a 2015 if somebody's not taking care of it.
I'll tell you, one of the nicest homes I ever bought, strength wise, was in 1969. They had rebuilt pretty much everything. One of the worst homes I ever bought was a 2015. It had been exposed to the weather for years. It was actually legally condemned, and the weather had destroyed it. So, just like any house, how we take care of it and how we rebuild it and maintain it has a lot to do with it. But my perfect buy right now is what the calculator tells me to buy. I'm still a calculator based guy. I want my spreadsheet to tell me this is going to make you a really good return on your money. I do kind of split my mobile home investing up in kind of two buckets. The 1970s, 60s, and 70s, that older one, those are really high return on my investments. So I'm looking for, I mean, it'd have to be a great property for me to go as low as 25% return on my money. I really want something closer to 30 because yeah, they're a little higher risk. Usually the land value is not as high in those areas. And then I also group it in like the 1990s and newer. The 80s are kind of this transition time where it's a mix of the two. But the 90s and newer, they're a stronger build. 1996 and newer has the new tie downs and straps. There is another code change in Florida. But essentially, it's a stronger build. I could actually sell it to someone that's going to get bank financing and live in it. Not that I do that, but that is another exit strategy there. I can get insurance on it, and I'm probably going to get higher dollars for rent. Usually in my market, those are a little bit bigger tracts of land, so a half acre, acre and a half, and it's a little more desirable. Again, a nicer home, so I get more dollars per month and a little bit lower ROI, and I get more equity of the appreciation. Today, I will invest in appreciation and equity because I built a business I can already live off of. When I was in growth mode, all I wanted was cash flow. If there was equity, I wholesaled it to someone else, took that money, and bought more cash flow. If you ask me in 3 years, what are my goals? I can't tell you because I will be in a different space in life and maybe I have different goals. So my goals are consistently changing. And I kind of harp on that is because I got stuck for a long time with a lot of my mentors only talking about their best deals. And I didn't do deals because I wasn't doing deals like them. They're in a totally different space and time of life. They were retired. So they didn't need to do the single and the double, for the baseball analogy. I needed to because I was in growth mode. So you can't always compare like your deals and my deals. It's where you're at in life and does it serve your goals?
Yeah. It's the same thing for me now. I look back, I mean, now I'm kind of getting to the phase where I just want predictability, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
finally bringing investors in. I just want to be confident that what I'm putting on the spreadsheet will come to fruition. My first couple parks, not the case. I was swinging for the fences. I was like, this basis, like when I talk about I mean, we bought a park for 150,000 and it's exactly what you would picture a park for 150,000 would look like. But I didn't care because I didn't know the real world yet. I just wanted the cash flow. And I'll, be honest with you, cash flow wise, it's crazy, but it's also headache wise
Mm-hmm.
crazy. And that's kind of like as people go through the phases of real estate investing, there's different points. And I've always looked, I think more people would benefit from looking at people ahead of them in life and understanding where their advice is coming from. Like I hear a lot of people talking about, like, I can't tell you how many times investors are like, well, I don't use banks. I just buy it cash, lower my risk. I'm like, that's great. I can't do that. So I finance deals, right?
Yeah.
And then you'll meet people who are making, half a million plus from their job and they're just putting money into a deal where they get 7% cash on cash and it's pretty likely it goes up. Their advice does not apply to my life situation because I will not get anywhere following that advice. When I get to that point, yes, I'll take it. But I think that's a really, really, really good point that you have to understand where people are coming from when they give you advice and understand that you don't make a lot of money being in the room with rich people. They've already gone through the tough parts. They don't really remember a lot of times what it's like to be at that point. They're in the protection.
Yeah, and I've taken now what I've done is be in the room with rich people, as you said, like or people way ahead of me, enders, as one of my friends, Bill Cooks calls them. I look at them like, okay, what are they doing? That's what I want to be doing. What do I need to buy, and what steps do I need to do to get to there? And maybe every once in a while I can buy one of those, but mainly I have to buy the step before them to get me there. It's a stair step. You don't the elevator hole analogy. You don't take the elevator straight up unless you were just born in a massive amount of money. And I'll tell you, the people that I've seen do that, they make a lot of mistakes and usually lose it because they're not diligent with their money. They're just buying. And as you said, like you wanting predictability. That's a phase of life I'm in too. I want predictability. So when I buy something that would be compared to your $150,000 mobile home park, the stuff I really don't want to take care of anymore, what I've been doing now is I then immediately owner finance it to another investor, the younger and time wise investor, not so much age, that's looking to go and do the hard work and swing the hammer and is willing to take those risks and do the grind term that I don't absolutely love, but go through that small phase. Well, I owner finance them at rates that they can, sorry, terms that they can afford. I make a lot of money on the rate. I'm helping them out. So we're both like helping and serving each other, and I can still make money and still help the seller. So now I let the property tell me, I look at it, all right, what can it do? What can it afford? And then what strategy do I have in my buckets of tools to use for it?
I just went through the same thing last week, actually. Somebody sent me a deal literally 500 yards from a park I own, and it made sense, but I was like, no, this is not a good fit for me anymore. It's It's just back then, yeah, I would have loved this. I would have been
Hmm.
all over this. I'd have been, driving out to meet the owner today. But today, it's not worth the time. And it's just I've learned over time what is the perfect fit for me, and it's a balance of headache and money. You don't
Yes.
just do deals based on like, hey, this one is going to make the absolute most money. Maybe in the beginning you do that, but very quickly you learn that like for me now in every deal I underwrite, there's a time thing in there and I bill my time into what it's going to take to get this deal done. That kills a lot of deals where it's just like, hey, this is too small. Even if it's $100 an hour, I'm not actually paying myself that, but if I charge it very quickly, that deal is underperforming the one where I do very, very little.
I want to talk about that for a few minutes. This is one reason I was excited to talk to you because we've talked a lot at the different meetings and outside here. Use the word headache. I use a headache value, which does not go on a spreadsheet anywhere. This is why wholesalers hate me because I can't give them this is my formula. If it's going to cause me more of a headache, I need to get paid more. Now, there are headaches so big that I'm like, nope, not for me. But that is how I kind of evaluate and move my numbers. Remember, I kind of said I want a higher return on those older homes? Well, generally, they're a little bit more of a headache. It doesn't mean it's too big of a headache for me to buy, but they are generally a little bit more of a headache because they're not as strong of a product. The newer ones should be less of a headache. And I'm being very general there. That's why I can take a little bit lower return on my investment today because I do the headache value.
Yeah, it's super important. It's hard to learn that without just doing it. I mean,
Yes.
honestly, you just have to have the headaches, and then very quickly you're like, no, this is not for me. Now, there's some stuff that's just clearly not going to be a headache. You have to be careful you're not overlooking it, and you actually have the biggest headache you'll ever find. But I think that's a key to investing.
Also, what's a headache to you is not a headache to me,
Right,
and vice versa.
right.
So that's one reason, like, a lot of times we're just not all competitions because I don't like dealing with government stuff. I don't like dealing with, like, the syndication, all the paperwork. I understand enough of it. I don't want to deal with it. So that is actually a little bit bigger headache to me because it's just something I don't truly enjoy. Talking to a single seller that has this problem, they can't sell it, like they fell out a title company or they've talked to other investors, whatever the different thing is, that is where I get my enjoyment. And our paperwork is so super simple. Lawyers would hate it. It's one piece of paper, like size 16 font, super simple. So the exact opposite of a syndication paperwork that has all the I's
150
dotted and
pages
yeah,
per deal.
yeah.
150 pages
And
per deal. That's
and
average.
and I've been in them and I've read them over. I hate it. So see, we have different headaches there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Cool. So your deals are mostly like you've got a single property, so a single seller, a single tenant, and it sounds like a single, well, I'll call him a lender, maybe not even an investor, like a lender at that point. So how do you, as you scale and you were growing your business, how do you start managing all of those relationships? Because we all know they don't all go perfectly. And you might have a tenant move out or you got to evict. How do you start managing all of that effectively?
well, how did I start doing it? I started doing it like a really big mess because I didn't have the right systems and everything in place. I was a spreadsheet guy for the longest time. I actually resisted moving away from spreadsheets, and spreadsheets are only as good as the data you put in them, and humans put data in, so there's going to be an error at some points. So yeah, I had errors. I put reminders on my phone. What do I do today? Because that's probably more of like what people need to learn versus all the mistakes I made. I do have a property management software. We have alerts. I have a part-time office manager. She is in the market where my stuff is in. I have Kartika. She lives in another country, one of my VAs. And everything basically we do has a double check. And it's not because, oh, hey, Jeff, you might do this wrong. It's, Jeff, you're going to have a bad moment at some point because you're human. And I want to catch it so that you actually don't get screw up and hurt the whole business. So we're just always double checking everyone and each other. And I have them double checking me because I'm not any better than anyone else on my team. Relationships are huge. So yes, I'm the one that has a little bit more of the relationship with the private money lenders because they're trusting me. They're investing in me, even though they have a property as a collateral. And I have those conversations. I'm consistently nurturing them, making sure they understand what's going on. One of the biggest things you can do when it comes to private money. And by private money, I mean another human being, not a big company or a fund that lends money, quote unquote, privately. I don't do them. It is Jeff's IRA or Jeff's savings account. That's it. Those are all my people. I update them early. Like you said, things go wrong. And I've run a mastermind group. I've been in many mastermind groups, and I hear consistently people frustrated because the person that they lent money to has not given them an update. And they're just like, I would be fine if I just knew what was going on. Or I would figure something out and help them out if they would answer the phone. But people go silent when things go bad. I have seen it over and over. I've done it where, hey, Jeff, hey, this is not going that well. Here's what's going on. Do you have any ideas? And then maybe I take your idea, maybe I don't, because I don't have to legally take your idea. And then I go and continue with it. But people have respected that because everyone knows things go bad at some point. So just be honest and authentic. Now, I might say, hey, Jeff, things aren't going so well. Here's some ideas that I'm working on. So I don't just go, well, I don't know what to do. I'm going to give up. You're going to be a little frustrated with me there. Communication is the biggest piece, I think, in all of this business. With our residents, communication. We actually go over the lease for an hour and a half before they're even allowed to sign it. We don't allow them just, oh, here, read it and push hard and sign. We don't do that. We make sure that they actually understand what they're signing, which gets to someone that's going to stay long term. We have people fall out between reviewing the lease and moving in. And they come up with an excuse, but I can tell every time it's because they don't like what's in our lease, and they can tell we are actually going to enforce it because we spent an hour and a half making sure they understand it. And that's good for both of us. It's not good for them to move in and have to leave in a few months, and we don't make as much money. If someone moves in every few, we make way more money whenever someone moves in and stays for a long time and takes care of that property. So communication is the biggest thing you can do.
So you mentioned earlier that you kind of buy what your spreadsheet tells you to buy. An interesting thing I have found in real estate is that people think underwriting is complicated. In reality, it's pretty simple. The problem is the assumptions you make when you underwrite something can make a massive difference. And it's hard to have a numerical answer for that. I'll give you a perfect example. I had a guy who was under contract on some mobile home park. He never bought one before. He called me asking if I could send him my underwriting model. I didn't think anything of it. I was like, yeah, sure. Here we go. Well, he underwrote it and he sent it back to me. He's like, well, what do you think? And he followed my model exactly. I've done it for years. You put in numbers, it tells you kind of where it is. Well, he was underwriting this park at like a 6 cap, and it's like a 12-lot park in the middle of Kansas. It's not even close to it. How can I teach him that, like, that's not right? And so what are the things that you have learned that have, like, that just instinctively tell you, hey, this mobile home looks like a good deal?
Ooh, that is a great question. I totally agree with what you're saying. I'm going to come back to it because the first thing that comes to my mind is I expect the unexpected. I expect something to go wrong. And I have many deals that nothing went wrong. But then I have something go wrong on one deal that was enough for 5 deals. So I have learned septic tanks, they go bad. I have had more septic tank problems. I don't go and inspect them ahead of time typically. I just put in my budget, we're going to take care of the septic tank in the first few years. Now, I'm not scared of septic tanks. A lot of people in my market are. Insurance is something, I was a little ahead on insurance. I was a little weary about it. And now in my market in Florida in general is a problem with insurance, especially mobile homes. I did buy a property a few years ago. Sorry, I put it under contract thinking I could get insurance because I could. And between when I put it under contract and whenever I closed, they changed the insurance. And I had to have it pass a 4-point inspection, which I was not planning to do. So I ended up having to replumb the whole thing because even though plumbing was good, it had, remember that the gray polybure thing? I think I can never say that word right. From the 80s, it's gray plumbing. If you see it, plan to get rid of it. I always put it in my budget to get rid of it. But if everything looks good and it's just some underneath, I will just wait sometimes. Well, nope, I had to replumb the whole thing. So things like that, I just expect the unexpected. And the other piece is rents have been on such a straight up. Especially a lot of people have not been in the market through the last recession or even multiple recessions. So people just think what we're experiencing will continue to happen of straight up rents and banks will always lend, So right now we're starting to feel it. Rents in my market have dropped. I have my own comps with very good comps, and I end up having to rent it for $200 less. The data is lagging. It's showing us what's behind today. So I always run my rents extremely conservative. We know that rents are always a range. So if it's $1,100 to $1,300 is the true range that you're finding the data for, I run my numbers on 1,100 at the very most. If I make more, that's a benefit to me. And that I was laughed at for a while and said, you're leaving deals on the table. And I probably was for a few years. Now, when the market has changed and it changed very fast, I went from looking like I was going to make a lot because of all that extra to making $56 a month because I did my bare minimum. Now this is more of an equity deal, growth deal, but I'm now going to only make $56 a month. What if I had done the math on the very best scenario? I would be losing money every month.
It's better to be pessimistic. I mean, if you look at guys in the construction industry, they'll just have plans that, hey, their crew's not going to show up this entire week. And you think, well, how can they possibly expect something to get done on time? They don't expect it to get done on time. So they build this in, and when it happens, they're like, oh, that's great. But the guys who get into it and they expect everything to go well, they get pissed when it doesn't, and that's just life. So, and it's the same thing with what I do. I always look at deals. I'm like, hey, we're gonna have this, expenses. Especially tough with sellers. Like a lot of sellers, they always want to see, kind of like some of them want to understand where my numbers come from. And I'll talk about, I used to talk about like, oh, it's 32% expenses. And they always quote me, oh, I don't spend anywhere near that. It's like, well, yeah, no, you don't, but look at your property. That's why it looks this way. If you did, I'd be probably able to pay a lot more for this. But it's because I know, okay, if I've got a 30 lot park, I'm going to have some septic go bad. I'm going to budget that in. You don't spend that every year, Mr. Seller. But because you don't, now I need to probably budget for four of them a year because you're not fixing anything. And I think that's really important for everybody because people, when they want to get in on those deals, they want to make it work. But in reality, when you learn to just say no to more deals than you say yes, you actually start finding good deals because you get to a point where you're like, I'm almost like when I go under contract on a deal, I'm almost like in disbelief. I'm like, hey, our occupancy could drop, our expenses could go up, and this still works. That's the kind of deals I like, and because like you said, you never know what's going to happen. My personal opinion of the next 5 years is that nobody knows what's going to happen, and not just like 5 years in general, but with what AI is doing,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any assumptions any economists have can be trusted for anything. I mean, I wouldn't trust that. You might think the person wanting to rent this home is a lawyer. That lawyer might lose their job in the next 5 years. None of us have any idea what's going to happen. So being conservative, you know, you might not you're not going to get disappointed. I'd rather be conservative and miss out on a deal than be optimistic and be wrong.
Yeah, if I want to be wrong in a direction, I want it to be the upside that I made more money, right? Versus the
Yeah,
downside that we didn't make as much money. I want that to be always be the shocker. We made more than we expected versus we made less.
right. You're a big mindset guy. So how much of that do you think you can credit to your abundance mindset and knowing that if I pass on this deal, there will be more?
I mean, it is all mindset, and I'm not. I've done really well with that, as you said. I am definitely a mindset guy. That's where I put a lot of my efforts today. Some practices I'm doing right now are being grateful for any type of money that comes in and any type of lead that comes in. I find a penny on the ground. I take a few seconds to be grateful that that penny came to me. And I heard a podcast on Jay Shetty and Lewis Howes, and they were talking about a penny. This is real recently, and he said, yeah, people just walk over a penny and don't think about it. Well, I always pick them up and I'm grateful. And then one day I picked one up that was a wheat penny. And if you don't know about wheat pennies, if you're too young, they're
Yeah.
always worth more than a penny
Yeah.
because they're so old and they're also copper and everything. So you think it's only a penny and then you turn it over if you aren't looking at money that comes to you. So I'm always really grateful. I missed out on a deal putting $100,000 into a self storage facility. I was going to do passive and everything. And I was a little disappointed, and it was all my fault. I didn't move the money fast enough. I didn't realize how fast he was needing things, and it didn't clear my accounts to get it wired over quick enough. So I lost out. And immediately I was like, all right, well, I lost out. That definitely sucks because it was a great deal. But what is going to come my way that's even better? That was my first, like, almost pep talk to myself. Something even better is going to come along. And it did. And it wasn't so much a return on my investment. It was the fun I was able to have. Now I did go put some of that money to work, but I couldn't have gone and done some of the traveling I did without that 100K in the bank account. So I put some of it to work, and it's always like something better is going to happen. There's a reason I didn't get that deal. Or every no is a step closer to the yes that actually works. I think that we just need to be grateful. And I do want to touch on, because this is really fresh for me. I've been focusing on how do I get more deals and leads when I'm not in Florida very much. And I'm a networker. It's a little hard to network when you're not in your area. And so I've come up with some different things, and I realized, you know what? I've been getting leads. I haven't been grateful because they haven't been the leads I want. So now I'm practicing being grateful for every lead I get. I don't care if it's good for me or not. Who can I connect them with? And I'm getting even more leads. This is only a few weeks old. I've been doing this, and my leads have probably doubled or tripled the amount coming in. And I found someone that wants these leads that I don't want. The in the park deals. So, going and buying the unit just in the park of yours and then flipping it or something. I don't want to do those anymore. But I found someone that's going to give me a bird dog fee for any of those. And I'm getting more of them. So, yeah, it's not the exact end goals we were talking about, but it's a good step towards that goal that's going to help me in my business. And I believe it's because I've been more grateful for those leads that are coming in.
Yeah, it's networking is super important too, because what's good for you is bad for somebody else. What's bad for somebody else is good for you. There's in the mobile home park space, I mean, there's tons of deals I look at where I'm just like, hey, this isn't right for me, but I know someone who would love this, and then you send them something, you don't ask anything, and then a couple months later you did nothing, and then all of a sudden there's an opportunity that's perfect for them. Like I find a lot of that with bigger groups that they don't have, there's not enough meat on the bone on a smaller park for them to make sense of it. But for me, I'll eat it up, because I look at the numbers, I'm like, this is easy, and it's opposite for them. And then vice versa. There's one where I'm like, hey, if I like double the rents over 5 years, I might get a 15% IRR if I sell it at a really good price. That's not me. Let's have somebody else do that. And they love it, right? And then it's the same thing. Like when you start learning that other people in the same space are not your competition. They are your
Mm-hmm.
friends. Even if they're doing exactly what you want to do, there will be a time when they don't have any capacity to do more, and they'll share stuff with you. Or you can partner and do aspects that you're really good at and they're really bad at. So it's always great to meet more people doing what you're trying to do.
I totally agree. It goes back to the Zig Ziglar quote: if you help enough people get what they want, you will get what you want.
Right. Right. So now at your point in your career, you're doing a lot of coaching. So can you kind of walk us through what kind of coaching you do for people looking to get into this space?
Yeah, so I started teaching. I didn't ever think I'd be an educator. Actually, I was terrified to speak in front of people. And so I got over that fear. Spent a few years traveling around the country teaching at different real estate groups about mobile homes. I wrote a book on the topic, how to buy mobile homes. I keep everything yellow. And I create a bunch of video courses and of exactly what I do. I bring my friend Mark in to teach how to fix and flip them because I don't fix and flip, and I'm not going to teach something I don't do. So we turn all those into video courses, and they're just on demand, exactly what we do. It's not like buy this and then buy this program and then buy this program. It's exactly what you do. So if you can take action with knowledge, that's what it is. And then I do a little bit of one-on-one coaching. Really, I've shifted a lot more of my energy today to some bigger passions. I'm still doing that side, but I run a high-level real estate mastermind for people that have been in the business. They live off of their real estate like they can. We're not going over the very basics of ARV. We're looking to have higher level. How do we go from I'm doing everything to being a business owner that happens to be in real estate? How can we scale this even bigger? That's how I've gotten into like the mobile home park syndication I was talking about, because one of the guys there has one. And so I really enjoy running that. I'm moving more into the mindset, as you said earlier. There's always been a little bit in my courses. I'm doing a hike with Adrian this summer. It's going to be a smaller group, and it's this behind the scenes stuff, as I just mentioned, about being grateful for the leads coming in that I believe is going to get me more leads. We're going to talk about stuff like that. I got up at 4:30 this morning to be able to be ready for this podcast, to have the energy. And it's not just like have some matcha tea or coffee. It's about my miracle morning meditation, some exercise, reading some positive stuff, some visualization of this going great and you asking great questions and I'm able to answer them. So that's the stuff I want to touch on more, because making money isn't that hard. We talked about spreadsheets, we talked about some strategy behind it, but if you don't have the right mindset,
It's very
nothing
hard.
we just talked about will work. Or it will work for a very short term, or it'll work so good that you're so unhappy in your personal life, all you're doing is working and you're getting all your fulfillment from your business and neglecting your personal life. Ask me how I know. I've made that mistake. So I'm looking to really help more on that side of it, because I think people will make more money with that. And I'm still buying properties in Central Florida. So I'm still doing a little bit of these. I do want to quickly touch on, because people are like, oh, you're doing so much. I love it because you have so many revenue sources, because everyone says you need 10 revenue sources. No, I don't believe so. You need one. And once that works really, really well, then you can add a second. And when that works really, really well, then you can add a third. You don't start 10, because then you do 10 really poorly and make a tiny bit on all 10. Get your first one working really, really well. Learn the business, and then you can start replicating a little faster.
Right. So Central Florida, can you kind of walk us through why that was the area you focus on and still focus on?
Because that's where I grew up. And my mentors all said they went within 30 minutes of their home. Actually, some of them went even tighter than that. They went within a 5 mile radius of a Walmart or different things like that, or even less than 30 minutes. They all went really, really tight. They went from big to small. I'm like, why am I going to make the same mistakes as them? That's what mentors are for. Let me just start with what they did. Now, I am fortunate, Central Florida. It's not Kansas, as you were mentioning. Like, there are properties within 30 minutes. I usually joke around about Wisconsin, because I have friends that their neighbors are 30 minutes away. Well, all right, they have to go to a bigger buying area. I can do it because there are enough. I was the guy. I drove out to every property. I did everything. So I did not want to drive 8 hours and then have to stay the night just to work on a property or to check on a property. So I keep it there still. I know the area. I don't have to have multiple sets of contractors. I don't have to know all these different state laws. I have 3 counties, so I do have to know 3 different county laws. Again, I'm very simple. Doing all those different things and learning, it gets complicated for me. I want it to be simple. So actively, that's all I buy, is this little diamond, actually, I call it. 30 minutes from Plant City, Florida, and it made my life very easy. I passively invest outside of there.
So what would you tell somebody who lives in an area like that? And some of them, it might not be that it's so rural. Some of them, it might be too expensive. Like I experienced that when I was trying to get into real estate. That's when I originally lived in Denver. I was like, I can't make anything work. And so I moved to Alabama to be close to it. But some people might want to be involved, but they don't want to go that extreme. What would you tell them to look for in a market that would do really well at what you're talking
Before I would even look to leave your market, is there something you're not seeing in your market that you could make money? You know, you were talking about Denver, yeah, prices are too high and stuff. Well, at some point, house hacking worked here really well. Some point, Airbnb here worked really well. Honestly, I still think there's a opportunity for some of these rural markets to do Airbnb in mobile homes, like out at Crested Butte. I think we've talked about it a little bit. I'm not finished brainstorming that. Maybe we can do something one day. I think, that's so unique. There's a little bit of housing shortage there. We're combining two things. So can you do something like that is what I would say to do first. And then if you're going to go out of state, all right, is it somewhere that you want to visit? What is the government? Now, government changes all the time. So that's not like the longest term thing, but at least start out somewhere that the government likes you as a landlord, or whatever business you're going to be in. I wouldn't go somewhere that the government hates you as a landlord, because you're going to be on an uphill battle, especially if you're starting out. So look for that. If you're into data, which I'm not, but I think it would be very important if you're moving to a new market. What is the data? Are people moving there? Are they leaving there? What's the income? Can they afford your properties? Again, I'm not the biggest data. I just kind of feel it. I'm more of a feel person. And I lived in my market, so I was able to do that. I wouldn't be able to do that and be like, oh, what does it feel like Kansas is doing? I couldn't do that. I'm not talking to people every day. So I would even say fly there, spend a little bit of time in that market, build your team. Your team is going to be extremely important, and put checks and balances, not because you don't trust them, but trust but verify.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's awesome. So one thing I always wonder, I mean, I kind of know the answer, and I would say it's probably lot rent, but what is the disadvantage to doing kind of your business model to buy and kind of, seller finance or rent to own, whatever it might be on a mobile home? What is preventing you from doing that in parks?
Well, the park manager has to want to work with me. I get it all the time because I have some students that do this, and I've done some within the parks. And they, oh, well, there's no parks that will do that in my area. Well, have you called them all? No, I called four. You have to call them all. I do believe in general there are more park managers that do not want investors in them. But I had a park manager reach out to me, actually not even a manager, the syndication manager. They have 4 or 5 parks. He needs to get rid of 34 units within all these parks. He does not want to do them himself because he believes that his investors could see it as a conflict of interest. So he wants another investor to come in, all 34, actually get all 34 of these for free, get them fixed up, get them rented or whatever they want to do, whatever they come to agreement, because look at how much value his portfolio just went up. So get the park manager. That's number one. I have students all the time asking me, well, the park manager said no, but could you think I can get around them by doing this or that? I don't like to play those games. Eventually, they're going to figure it out. They're going to be even more pissed with you. They're going to make your life not fun. Find the park manager that wants to do business with you, because then they're going to give you deals. In Florida, we have those hurricanes. So if I have a unit within a park and I owe lot rent and I have a year lease and the hurricane comes and turns a mobile home to a hurricane missile, well, now all I have is lot rent. So I don't particularly love that. If I own the dirt, well, now at least I have some dirt I own. So that is one of my reasons. I want a super high return on my investment if I'm doing something within a park. In the park, again, we talked about earlier that I believe parks are more of wanting services. So they want stuff kind of done for them in multifamily, not just parks, but multifamily in general. So that's a little bit of it for me. Is because of that. I want people that want to move in and stay a very long time. And if I understand the data correctly, people that live in single family move less often than people that live in some type of multifamily. I know there's some exceptions to the rules, probably especially in some of the parks you're dealing in. That's probably some of the exceptions. But that's another reason. I've had park managers change. And then all of a sudden, rules changed. And they sent me an email on April 5th and told me by the end of the month, you cannot own any units in this park that you don't live in. I had 2. So that was a really fast change. And I
Yeah.
still made money on it. So those are some of the reasons they're not my favorite, but you can make a lot of money. I have students that do. I just shifted my business because I'm at a different point in my business.
What I would tell you is from a park owner's perspective, take the homes. Honestly, and people like would be shocked to hear me say that. I don't want the homes. I'm in it for the land. I ignored the value of the homes when I bought it. All they provide me is headache, potential vacancies, and a business that I'm not in. I have to manage the interiors of home, which I'm not set up to do. So that's why, as a park owner, the right type of park owner would be, especially if it's a park where it's like I have
Mm-hmm.
one I just bought. It's 30 lots. 8 of them were mine when I bought it. Eight's not enough for me to like justify continuing to rent out, right? But I would gladly give those to somebody who's going to do a good job. The problem I have found as a park owner, and I've really learned this as a broker, when you go to sell a park, if people look at a rent roll and they say they see 50 lots and then they see 20 lots owned with the same person, they get really nervous because they're
Mm.
like, man, what if that person pulls them out? And that's not just the buyer's concern, it's the banks. Typically the rule I've found is if any one person owns more than 10% of the units, a bank is just going to kill it. And I had this. I had a 60 lot park I was trying to sell as a broker in Mississippi, and one guy owned 45 of the lots. And he wanted the park. Anytime we got an offer, he would catch wind of it, and he would basically say, if you close, I'm pulling all 45 of my houses out. Now, would he have really done that? I didn't think so, but it doesn't matter. Like that's a risk. So that what I have found is kind of a way around it because I have a few people in some of my parks who own a couple houses here and there. I've been very careful to make sure none of them exceed that rule. But what I have found that works is when they do exactly what your business is, they're going to finance the home to the tenant one way or another, whether it's renting or whatever. Works for me, right? The tenant's paying me lot rent. They're going through with them for the house. And I know that they're going to do a good job because there are a lot of people who will not do a good job. But from my perspective, I've have a couple of parks I've filled up by buying the house, spending 3 to 5 thousand to buy it and move it there, and giving it to somebody who I know is going to do a good job, and they basically act as a bank and finance it to the tenant on the back end. I get a filled lot. That's how I make my money. I spent 5,000. That lot's probably worth 35,000. That's my business model. That works. They'll make money because they'll probably spend 10 or 15, maybe 20,000 fixing it, do a really good job, and they'll make 60,000 or whatever it is financing it over time. That's their business. If you have any students who are looking in central Alabama, let me know because I still have a ton of homes. I would seriously be willing to do that with people. Knowing, if they do a good job and that sort of thing.
I definitely will. And I love that. And I hope people are hearing you that there are more of you in other states because you have a headache, as we talked about the headaches earlier, and you're having another investor come and solve your headache. They get to make money. You get to make money with less headaches. And I love it. Personally, I do think in-park deals should be basically notes, owner financing out to the owner. That's how you make really good money. I don't like them so much as rentals. I've done a little bit of rentals with them, but that was just because the right deal came along. I mainly always owner finance those out. And the home and land, I prefer to keep as a long-term rental because the value is going to go up in my dirt. The value of lot rent doesn't really go up. The lot rent
Right.
goes up, not, the value of home moves a little bit, but yeah.
Right. And from my perspective, it's what it comes down to is it's a different business model. I've tried to do both. I've bought parks where I owned every house and I thought this is going to be great. But I found out over time what I'm really, really good at is finding the opportunities. That's where I am most valuable at any part of life. Those properties where I'm managing 20 houses, they take up time even to this day. And I can't continue to grow my business at a certain point. I kind of hit a threshold where I was like, I can't do any more deals because I'm so busy managing what I've got. That's where it makes sense for somebody else to come in. Because number wise, yes, is if you own a park and you want to own all the homes too, you can make more. It doesn't necessarily make the park more valuable because park owners just kind of look at the lot rent alone. But yeah, I think it's a good way. And the other good thing about that is with the right park owner, I wouldn't just say go do this with everybody. With a corporation like one of these big groups, they may just change the rules and say, "Hey, screw you, get rid of it." With a park owner who has the right business model and the right goals, they can line up with somebody who wants to do this because from my perspective, I'd rather see that those homes go to somebody who's going to do a really good job fixing it and find those tenants, and I can help out if they're not close. I have people who go through my parks on a weekly basis just to inspect them. They can go in the homes too. That's what I've done with the one guy I have a
Hmm.
park with, and it worked for him. He was able to vet somebody, and then we send somebody through there once a week on his behalf because they're just checking out the park anyway. And it allows him to kind of continue to grow his business because he has got this big construction business in Birmingham. He doesn't have time for checking on this one mobile home. So there's tons of different ways. I would say for most people, it's just relationships. Find somebody who's got complementary goals with you. That could be the same goal. It could be opposite. I mean, you and I pretty much have opposite goals. You want to own as many of the homes. I want to own at least as many of the homes. But at the end of the day, our end goal is kind of the same, right? We want to live off the cash flow from these
Mm-hmm.
properties. And so there's a lot of opportunities for people like that to work together.
And I do want to point out, because we've gotten into much of the mindset of it, we have kind of opposite things that we do. Well, you said you're really good at finding deals and doing the numbers on it. That's not my strength. I'm really good at management. So I'm doing what I like and you're doing what you like, and we're both making money, and we're just doing less of the other side of it. So I buy less properties than a lot of people, but I manage really well, so I'm making more money per deal generally, and then I wait until I find my next one.
Right. Yeah, and the deal part, it's you're exactly right. I've tried to do everything. It's not a fun way to go. You can do it. Like I'm the type of person, if you tell me I can't do it, I immediately am like determined, okay, now I'm going to do it. And that's kind of what happened to me with management. Like it was kind of like a challenge. People are like, oh, you can't do all this. I was like, well, yes, I can. The question I should have asked is, do I want to? The answer is
Yes.
no. I do not. I do not want to do all this. I want to do a deal and, buy it right, move on to the next one, so nice. Well, what else are you working on now? Like, so you've got your coaching program. What would you say is like your primary focus going forward?
I'm the most excited right now is about that hike. I
Nice.
got like a few more spots in it. It's something I've thought about for a while. I've been brainstorming on, and honestly, I gave it to myself as my reward for getting some stuff done in the business that I've been putting off. In the buying side, just things that I don't love doing. And I was like, all right, well, if I get all of these things done, then I can focus on and launch the hike with Adrian. So I'm the most excited about that. I'm really big into nature, the meditation, the yoga. That's one reason I'm loving it out here in Colorado. I've not said this publicly yet, but I am going to write a second edition of my book, probably the second half of this year. I don't have any like dates or anything, but I'm focused on the hike right now. I can't do both
Right.
and have harmony with personal life.
Right.
And as we've already touched on, I want that harmony there. So I'm not going to do all straight business. So yeah, those
Right.
are like some things that's like coming and then growing my mastermind as well. We've got a few seats open there that we're looking for the right people. And so, yeah, I'm enjoying life. I'm going to buy more properties. I know that. I am looking to buy a few more that I have. So I'm putting a little more effort there. I just know I'm going to buy properties. That's one reason also I love that smaller area because I am the mobile home guy in that area. I would have to build that name in multiple areas if I had multiple states up. In that tight area, I have drilled it into people. I even fly back to make sure I go to some meetings sometimes. Sell me mobile homes if you don't like them.
Yeah. Nice. Where's this hike? That sounds interesting.
It's going to be outside of Denver. We're going to do 6+ miles. It's going to be an all day thing. So we're not going to be just hiking. We are going to be starting with some meditation and yoga, the morning routine. And then we're going to be, think of it as kind of a mastermind within nature. So it's not going to be like coming with a particular problem to like boardroom advisors with, but we're going to be touching on a lot of the behind the scenes. And it's going to be a little more conversational than just like, it's not going to be me just straight educating. And it's not going to be just a conversation. We're going to have some kind of stuff we go through, but it's going to be kind of flow. And I think nature is just a great place to do that in. And when we're walking and moving, it kind of keeps us, how do I explain, like just creativity and we're more focused and we can be more together. And sometimes, especially guys, unfortunately, we do a little bit more deep talking if we're walking next to each other versus like looking at each other. I don't particularly like that we do that, but it is kind of what guys do sometimes. And it's
Yeah.
not only guys that are going to be on it. So I'm just really excited about it because I know even the people that already signed up, I'm excited like for what they're going to bring to it as well. And it is going to be at least 6 miles. My goal and hope is it's going to suck at some point for each person because then we can get really into the similarities of regular life and everyday business. You pushed through that few minutes that sucked, or you tripped, and I'm not wanting to totally suck for people, but that hard is a good analogy for regular life to expect that there's going to be hard times, and we want to talk about that. How do we get through those hard times? Because as you said, deals are going to go bad sometimes. There's going to be some trouble. I want to talk about that. Like, let's not ignore that in life. Let's actually talk about it because then we can have a happier life and make more money.
Yeah. It's a good analogy. The one I use a lot of times is because I've done some 14 years in Colorado. And by the way, count me in for this hike. That sounds fun. But you get to the top, that's not the goal. You got to look down. Now you have to hike down. And it's like, damn it. That is the worst thing in the world because you've already seen everything.
Yeah.
And I always use it as the analogy for like people working on their first deal. I'm like, that's not the end goal. That's when you start. And I was not prepared for that. I was a broker too. So for me, transactions always kind of like ended the day it closed. And I was just like, oh, yay, they got a deal. They're making money. No, that's like, it's a fight to get there. And now it starts.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about is perfect because I think a lot of people learn more when when they're honest with themselves. It's very hard for people to be
Hmm.
honest in like a business setting, with a
Yeah.
suit. When people are out there, when you get tired, you kind of stop, your filter kind of goes away. Especially like, I don't know if you're doing like a high altitude hike. My buddy and I, man, we would usually talk until about right at the point the tree line stops. And then we didn't say anything anymore because we're just so winded. And it was just kind of like, you know, just from there on out, just kind of listening to like the few other words people would say. It was usually just like, man, are we there yet?
Which is part of it, like there is going to be some silent moments because getting silent with nature. I think that's, for me, I recharge a lot in nature. And I think there's a beauty of that. And we're in such a fast paced world that I don't believe in general we take enough time to get silent. And I still, even as big into meditation and nature and yoga as I am, I still find myself at times like not getting back grounded and quiet. And every time I do that, my business gets better. One of my favorite quotes, even though it is a meditation quote, is you have to slow down to speed up. And it is perfect for business, even though it's really meditation. I know that I think the SEALs or something, one of the military branches
Slow
have
is smooth,
something.
the smooth is fast.
There you go. Yep. I thought you would know it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true. I mean, there's the other one that you'll hear a lot in the military is don't run to your death. Doing
Ooh, I don't
things.
think I've heard that one, or it's been a long time. That's good.
Well, it's funny because like a lot of people think everything is just super high paced. I mean, because that's what looks good in movies. But I
Yes.
mean, if you look at people who climb Everest, they don't just get there and walk to the top. They go up about a third of the way, they acclimatize, and they come back down, and then they go up a little bit further, and then they come back down. And you have to get used to that because every step along the way is different things. If you don't come back to like base camp and like realize how far you're coming, you kind of lose sight of it. I'm a super goal oriented person, and all the time my wife will have to stop and be like, calm down. Look where you were 2 years ago. You're doing just
Yeah.
fine. But to me, it's like I set these huge goals because that's the only thing that gets me out of bed in the morning. Like my first ever like race I did was an Ironman, and I had
Okay.
never even done like a had never even done like a half marathon. But it's like I just couldn't get myself excited about something I kind of like knew I could do. It had to be something where it's like I don't know if I can do this. That's the only thing that motivates me. And I'm the same way in business, and I'm constantly in these situations where I'm failing, and I have to like ground myself and realize like, well, I'm failing because I'm trying something I've never done before. That's fine. That is growth. Just doing what I know I can
Hmm.
do, that's just chores. I have no interest in that.
I assume you have to be a big David Goggins fan.
Yeah, I respect
Okay.
what he does. It just to me, it's like I just don't want to run that much.
Okay. But the mindset of it is a lot of what you're talking about. And one of my favorite things about David Goggins, although, a lot of people talk about him and think about him, is I don't want to run that much. I don't want to go that big and hard, hard, hard. Always go, stay hard. David Goggins stretches for 2 hours every single day. And he talks about, if you really listen to him, he's really talking about going inside and going into the demons and working through that and being totally alone. He talks about all this hard stuff, but he spends way more time recharging alone, going introspective, and slowing down than he actually does speeding up. But you have to really get into David Goggins to hear all that. And so that's one reason I love him. And I did finally get to hear him speak live in person. And he was
At Aspire, yeah,
just as amazing as I would have expected. But he talks a lot about slowing down. It's just that doesn't sell as well. And people don't quote that side as much.
yeah. I think a lot. The part I really like is just going a step at a time. Like I to me, the biggest thing I took away from my time in the military is that big goals are just a bunch of small goals. Like you can't sit out and say like, "Hey, I'm gonna," for me, like I'm working on my 10th park now. If you had told me before my first, I'd be doing that in the time frame I am, I'd be like, "There's no way." Well, it's like I just take it a deal at a time. I know how to find a deal. I know how to get the bank. I know how to get the money. I'm just gonna worry about one deal. Okay, now I got that one done. Now I want to do another one. And that adds up over time. Just like with what you're doing, I think a lot of people get into real estate and they want to do one deal and just be set. That's not how it goes. Like you've got to do one and then two and then three and then four. And you keep going and you learn along the way. And then eventually you look up and you're like, man, I'm at my goal. But
Yeah.
it takes time and it should take time. If it was very easily achievable, everybody would do it and they would be fleeting. Real estate takes a very long time to amass from the perspective of like, hey, I want to have enough cash flow to live off of. That takes a long time to do, but it should because if it was easy, everybody would do it. But that's not the case. If you do it, it lasts a long, long time because it's so hard to do. There's not a lot of other people willing to work that hard to achieve that.
I totally agree. I know we're getting long on this. I've got two things I want to add to it, and I was actually looking to see if I could find the picture. And here it is in my book, actually. So there's two practical things you can do with that. Is people are that are watching, and it'll zoom right. Shoot, it's not going to go very clear on page Anyways, page 29, there's an image of a whiteboard. And what I did when I wanted to actually fully replace, at the time, my wife's income, I knew our average rent, how much we'd get, which was $300 per property net to us. I knew we needed $3,000 more to be free. Not to go on vacations all the time, but to become free, to hit those goals. So 3,000, 300. We know we need 10 properties. We put 10 lines on a whiteboard, 0 out of 3,000. And then I would see it, $159 or however much it was, the first one. Seems like nothing. 59 out of 3,000. 400. 400 plus 100. So it'd start adding up and you would start seeing it line by line. And you're like, oh, shoot, those add up really fast. And when you're seeing it, so it was a consistent reminder. And I now have a new one of those because I realized I got away from what worked. And so I have a new one hanging up in my room right now with my current goals. It's not 10 of them at 300. It's a little bit higher numbers, we'll say, than that. And so that was a consistent reminder of every little step that you're talking about. And I'll be completely open here that you asked me, like, where's the hike going to be? I said, outside of Denver somewhere. I don't know yet. I have plenty of time to figure that out.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and hike and figure out which hikes I want to go on, but I don't need that answer yet. I don't need to have every little step to this hike perfect. I know the general what it's going to be. I know a lot of the pieces of it. I've done a lot of brainstorming. So now let's find the people that are interested in that. I will curve exactly what we talk about depending on who's there. As long as, I'm going to have some people give me some feedback, and then I know people well enough probably that are going to be coming. So then I can build it for those people, and then I can find the hike that's going to be the best one for everyone that's going to be there. So I don't need to have every step. I used to suffer from that. I have to have everything perfect before I can do anything. Well, I wouldn't have a hike date planned yet. It might be another year or two.
Yeah. Luckily, I have a lot of background in entrepreneurship because that's actually like what I majored in college. And I never had to go through that because they harp on that. Entrepreneurship is not a perfect plan. You just start, you fail, you learn, you fail, you learn, you fail, you learn. And then over time, you figure out. Because I meet tons of people who try to start businesses and it's just years and years of them doing spreadsheets. And by the time they get ready, like especially with AI, I mean, damn, things change month to month. So it's important to just in anything in life, just you have the idea of what you want, you'll figure out the details, but you just have to figure it out, say it's going to happen, and then just start moving towards it.
Yeah. And you're making me think of the engineer brain, that everything's got to be perfect and all the way there. And I have some students that are engineers, and they did concern me because I'm like, are they ever going to do anything? And they would ask me questions. I'm like, I really don't have the perfect answer. I just did it. And I figured it out but they need to know every step. I would say for those engineers out there that that's you, when you do take action and finally buy, you do really well because you've checked it all. You've checked probably more than I have. And then you start getting that confidence behind you, and then you start moving a lot faster. So I've seen that if the engineer can finally take the action and buy and be successful with it, they usually do really, really well. But they struggle a little bit more than the non-engineers because of that need of all the little pieces.
Yeah, I see it a lot in the syndication space. They'll have two partners. One of them is just a salesman, not just a salesman, but they're like mostly salesmen, just going out there doing it. The other guy doesn't want to talk to people, but they just keep doing the work and making sure everything's right. And then they kind of meet somewhere in the middle, and you have both because that engineer doesn't know how to go out and talk to people, and they also won't take action as much as the salesman wants to just push things forward. And then they figure. So it's a good. The one thing I would say I've learned in life is if you're not good at something, you can find somebody who is.
Yes.
And that's all you need to keep moving forward. You don't have to get good at everything yourself.
Totally agree. Well said, man.
Well, Adrian, I appreciate it. This has been great. I'm sure we'll have many more conversations over coffee about mobile homes and mobile home parks. But I meant it about those people. If you know any students who want to get into Central Alabama, let me know. But if people want to get in contact with you, they love this, they want to learn more about your program, what you do, what's the best way for them to do that?
So I'm on most social medias. I'm the most active on Facebook just because of my age. Adrian Smude or Lifestyle REI. I'm on Instagram, and my VA helps me get on X and LinkedIn and some others. So you can shoot me a message there. I try to post a lot of value and content and mindset stuff. You can also just shoot me an email. Remind me you came from Jeff's podcast here. Adrian at lifestyle-rei.com. Adrian at lifestyle-rei.com. And I do have a PDF that will help you get over some of the myths we did not talk about. Like you barely touched on trailer trash, the whole mindset stuff of that. That's the big thing. I'll happy to share that. That's like always my first step. Let me help you get over these myths that don't have to be true.
I guess it's because I'm already over it. Like
Yeah,
I know it's not true, and,
yeah.
and so it's to me I don't even think about it anymore.
That's
But
one
yeah,
reason this was going to be a fun episode for me. I didn't have to just rehash all the myths that I usually have to do.
mobile homes are not RVs. RVs are not mobile homes. That's
Yes.
what I hear a lot. Yeah, they're like, it's funny. I've in Alabama when I told people what I did, everybody kind of got it. In Denver, everyone, I'll tell people I'm a mobile home park investor. They're like, oh, we love going to Jellystone and like we love camping in our RV. And I'm like, I do too. I always try to be as polite as possible. It's like that's not what I do. But it's a totally different thing. But awesome. This was great, man. I'm sure we'll probably have to do another one at some point to get more into the weeds of the mobile homes and all that sort of stuff. I know for people who really want to learn, you've got a course that tells them everything they could ever want to know. So that's why I felt more important to just kind of talk about you and everything else. But appreciate it, man. This was
Yeah.
great.
Thank you. Appreciate you. See you at coffee.
See ya.